When the pandemic made it impossible to open the buildings of the Portsmouth Historical Society for the 2020 season, Richard and Gloria Schmidt of the Community Theater came up with the idea of doing short video clips of actual places in the area that people could visit and the stories associated with those places. We hope you enjoy On the Road. We're now in the south end of Portsmouth on the grounds of the Portsmouth Historical Society to learn about this one-room schoolhouse behind me.
Good day to you. I am Schoolmaster James Preston, and this is my school, the Southernmost School. It serves the students here in South Portsmouth. I know you pass by on the East Path every day, and I'm glad you stopped by to admire this fine building. You know, education was always valued in Portsmouth, but it did take a great effort to get this built. Back in 1716, the freemen of the town declared, well wait, I have it here, I'll read it to you. Having considered how excellent an ornament learning is to mankind, and the great necessity there is in building a public school on the south side, we establish a committee to raise the funds. They authorized £23, or about $6,000 in your money. But it took 9 years to do that. But finally in 1725, Captain Adam Lawton and his workers took only 8 days to build this post and beam building. It has an arched and plastered ceiling like many fine homes. It was then on a lot across Union Street, and there it had a nice cellar with a fireplace and an oven for cooking, and upstairs a hearth to keep the classroom warm. Now the town supported the building, but the families of the students provided room and board for the schoolmaster and his family. It was one of the few public buildings in the town, and was also used for town meetings, church services, and as a place to shelter the needy. The building moved up and down Union Street over the many years it's been here, and now it is on the grounds of the Portsmouth Historical Society for you to tour. Come tour the grounds here. You will find placards with QR codes, which if you scan them with your smartphone, you will be able to either read or listen to their stories. So you are most welcome to come. Do come, tour our grounds, and see our historic building.
Another stop at the north end of Portsmouth is Founder's Brook, where we'll be hearing from Anne Hutchinson.
This is such a restful place where the citizens of Portsmouth have chosen to celebrate their founders. Oh, my name is Anne Hutchinson. My words and actions were considered a threat to the ministers in Boston, and after a trial, I was exiled. Many families joined mine to leave that town behind and create a new settlement based on religious freedom. So you see, my actions started the events that led to this founding. What we were doing was something new. Other settlements were guided by an agreement with a king or church leadership. Nearby, there's a pudding stone rock with a bronze tablet with our compact on it. Our agreement to form a body politic bound by God's laws. You will not find my name there. As a woman, I could not sign, but I fully supported all that it promised. Some people believe this is where we first stayed when we came to the island of Aquidneck in 1638. But our original lodgings were a camp of tents and caves dug out of mud and lined with wood by a stream farther north. In May of 1639, my husband William was selected to lead the settlement, and house lots were laid out here around this water source. This was common ground, and the stream became a hub of activity for the community. The water serving the needs of all the families here. To the east, a level ground of 4 acres was set aside as a training ground for militia drills. And nearby, where the river goes into the town pond, William Ballston built a public house, an important meeting place for the townsfolk, and one step closer to our making this wilderness seem more like home. In England and in Boston, town living with its conveniences was what our merchant and craftsman husbands were used to. Here again, we learned something new. Our men became farmers, and as lots were available, people moved and built homes and lived on their farms. William and I kept a small lot here, but our sons had larger farms farther south. When William died, I was afraid. Without his protection, I feared that authorities from Boston would come and take me back. So I moved with my family further to the west. But that's another story. If you visit this Founder's Brook, I hope you will remember the people who came together to form this community, Portsmouth.
All of this land behind me and around me was once a huge farm owned by H.A.C. Taylor. Let's learn more about it.
Fine place, isn't it? Mr. H.A.C. Taylor started this farm in the 1880s. Back then, men with money would pursue farming as a break from their high-powered jobs. Now, he didn't actually work in the barns, but he did use his head and science to help the stock and the people. I'm Manuel Camara, and you might say I've spent my entire working life here. I started off as a farmhand and ended up, eventually, being the foreman. Now, the barns were originally made of wood, but Mr. Taylor thought that stone was better. You can see the dates when they went up. 1907, the dairy barn. 1910, the bull barn. 1911, the horse barn. Mr. Taylor used only the latest ideas. He had them constructed in such a way as to protect the stock from the wind and the freezing weather. Why, he even had hot water running under the stalls to warm them. Yes, sir, this was a model farm. We had prize stock, Percheron horses, Guernsey cows. We even had our own fire truck, electric generator, and telephone switchboard connecting all the buildings. Now, some of the other gentlemen farmers were not gentlemen when it came to who is the best at something. The milk of one of our cows, Missy of the Glen, showed a very high butter fat content, so high that these fellows refused to believe it. They said that we, the workers, were cheating. Well, Mr. Taylor was not going to put up with that. The reputation of this farm and the value of his stock were at stake, so he took them to court. It went from one court to another and eventually to the United States Supreme Court. Men from the Rhode Island Department of Agriculture came to this farm once a week for an entire year. And after that year, their verdict was that we were absolutely correct. Mr. Taylor won the case and got a judgment of $10,000. Of course, he spent $25,000 on legal fees, but that didn't matter. Missy and Glen Farm were vindicated. We were the best, just like we said we were. Well, I'd better get back to my chores.
Another notable event in Rhode Island history took place right here in Middletown at Prescott Farm. I invite you to listen and learn about Barton's Raid.
Good day, neighbor. You see this fine old house? Old-timers here may refer to it as the Deputy Governor Nichols House, or some may call it the Overing House, after that traitorous scoundrel Henry Overing. When our island was occupied by the Redcoats, Henry favored their cause. He even played host to that dastardly general, Richard Prescott. But I have a story to tell about this house involving patriot bravery and some good fortune that happened on a night in 1777. How do I know? I am Samuel Corey, and I was there. During the occupation, many of us were in Tiverton with Colonel Barton, awaiting word when we could invade and take back our island. When he called for volunteers for a secret mission, where, as he said, we might pass the shades of death before it was accomplished, every one of us stepped forward. Barton chose 40 men, and on the night of July 4th, 1777, we set out in 5 whaleboats. Being careful to avoid the British ships that were at anchor around the island, we headed for Warwick Neck in order to begin plans for our mission. The night of July 10th was dark, clear, and calm, perfect for our plan to capture British General Prescott, who was staying at the Overing House. He was well protected when in Newport, but not this night, not this night in Portsmouth. We muffled our oars so as not to betray our presence to the British ships, and we made our way quietly to the west shore of Portsmouth. Being most familiar with the area, I guided the men quietly up the gully to the Overing farm. Colonel Barton was able to convince the sentry on duty that we were out looking for deserters. And before he could sound an alarm, one of our men grabbed his musket and kept him quiet. It was over in minutes without a shot being fired. And that pompous British general was captured in his nightclothes and slippers. It was a sight to behold. We made our way safely back to Warwick Neck, and I later heard that Prescott was used in a prisoner exchange where we got back our American General Lee. Although I went on to fight in many battles for our just cause, I remain most proud of my part in Barton's raid.
As early as the 1920s, people were gathering here and working to preserve this area. During the Revolutionary War, when the British occupied this island, they actually forced Portsmouth residents to build a barracks for 200 troops. Later, this became an important staging point for the American troops as they attacked the British in what was called the Battle of Rhode Island. Fortunately, this area has never been developed because the Portsmouth coal mines run underneath here, and you cannot dig down and build a house, which was a good thing. Recently, the Historical Society held a gathering here to talk about this area and their efforts to preserve it. Going forward, this may become another park here in Portsmouth.
Good day. Major Samuel Ward here, of the Rhode Island 1st Regiment, at your service. And welcome to Fort Butts. I know, it doesn't look like a fort, because it's an earthenworks fort. If you don't have time, and you don't have a lot of stone, you build it out of what you have a lot of, dirt. You take the dirt, build it, dig a ditch, and bring the dirt up and build walls like you see here. Now, we started building this fort shortly after we declared independence from Great Britain. But we didn't get to finish it before the British invaded the island, took it over, and sent their troops. Actually, they made the citizens of Portsmouth complete the fort, including barracks for 200 soldiers on a field nearby. However, after our French allies joined our cause, the British decided to abandon the fort and withdraw their troops to Newport to protect the harbor in case the French bombarded the city. And their fears were well founded, because General Washington had planned that General Sullivan would lead our troops over from Tiverton by Howland's Ferry at the same time the French would be bombarding Newport. Well, in August of 1778, we did come across and we occupied this fort. However, there was a sudden storm which damaged the French and British fleets, and our allies, the French, had to withdraw to repair their ships. We decided to attack anyway, and so we started sending our forces down the East Road and the West Road toward Newport. We were ambushed at the corner of Union Street and the East Road. We had to retreat, and the British were on our tail. I must say, the fighting lasted from morning until afternoon. The British and the Hessians had lines on Almy Hill, Quaker Hill, and Turkey Hill, about a mile south of here. Our main line was right here near the fort on Butts Hill. The fighting was fierce. The cannons roared from 9 a.m. until the late afternoon. We had many skirmishes and hand-to-hand combat. Why, there were many advances and then retreats on both sides. Our men fought valiantly. In fact, the men in our black regiment fought valiantly and are remembered for doing so. Well, there was a brook near here that ran red. It was called Bloody Brook because it was filled with the blood of both the British and American soldiers. Well, by evening, the lines had remained about the same, but we heard that the British were sending thousands of troops up to here to fight the battle. So General Sullivan decided we should withdraw so we could fight another day. He had a clever ruse. He had us set up our tents to make it look like we were staying the night. But then we had all our gear ready to leave. And so near nightfall, we grabbed everything and retreated across to Tiverton by Howland's Ferry. And yes, you probably know the rest of the story. We were able to fight another day, and eventually we won our independence from Britain.
Our next stop is here, where we're going to learn about this yellow house behind me.
Well, hello there. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Leonard Brown, and this is my wife, Sarah.
We're so happy you want to hear about our history.
I was born in Middletown in 1815, and we were married in 1838.
I was born right here. My father, Cook Wilcox, was a Revolutionary War militia leader. He died in 1850, and my mother gave us this house and lands as a wedding gift.
That's right. And in 1851, we built the barn next door for us. I'm a wheelwright and a blacksmith, as well as a farmer. We took part in many of the Aquidneck agricultural fairs over the years.
Folks around here say Leonard's one of the best farmers in all of Portsmouth. We've won blue ribbons for our lambs, sheep, heifers. We even got a special award for best lot of local cows.
I buy good cattle, and I make more money for a pair of them that are fed some than a poor pair.
Although some folks don't think much of that. Why, they told a reporter, Leonard Brown don't care what he pays for cattle if he takes a fancy to it.
Now, Sarah, it seems that none of our 6 children are interested in farming, so I guess that when I'm gone, Mr. Taylor will make this property part of his.
Oh, that's H.A.C. Taylor. He owns Glen Farm back that way. Well, if he does, he'll probably paint the house yellow like the rest of his buildings. Maybe even have some of his workers live here. But you know, whatever color the house is, I hope people will remember that this was once our home, the Brown House.
What some people might consider the center of Portsmouth, right across from the town hall, is the Evangelical Friends Church. Let's hear all about it.
Welcome. Did you know that this meeting house is one of the oldest buildings in Portsmouth? and one of the oldest houses of worship in Rhode Island. I am Elizabeth Trout, and I was pastor here from 1918 to 1948. The Society of Friends would meet here in Portsmouth to pray since 1658, and in this very building since 1700. Friends believe that something of God lived within all of us, an inner light to guide you towards right thinking. The church leaders in Boston believed that God only spoke through them, and consequently, they would banish, imprison, or even hang those who thought otherwise, including a woman, Mary Dyer, a missionary, who left the safety of her Aquidneck Island home to bring comfort to those friends that were in prison, died by the noose. Here, we found religious freedom, peace, and even prosperity. Half of all the residents of the colony of Rhode Island considered themselves to be members of the Society of Friends. Many of them served as governors. Many others held high government offices. However, after the War for Independence, it was decided that Friends should not hold public office. Because of our beliefs, we didn't actively serve in the military during those times. However, we did participate in non-violent efforts. In 1776, when the British soldiers occupied this island, this very building was commandeered to be barracks for the English and Hessian soldiers, as well as storage for their ammunition. Now, Friends believed that every child had unique and special gifts, and that education was very important. I myself am trained as a teacher. Along with my sister Ada, I opened a primary school which served generations of children. In 1784, this very building was also known as a school, with students from away staying with local church families. In 1788, the school closed. However, the funds were used to open what is now known today as the Moses Brown School in Providence, which continues to this day. Oh, this building has changed over the years, enlarged when numbers flourished, and still welcoming when numbers dwindled. Farmers, coal miners, former slaves, generations of families with close ties to the Society of Friends cross this threshold. We strive to live with integrity and equality, community, simplicity, good stewardship of the earth, and peace. All are welcomed here. Please come again. Thank you.
We're here at the far north end of Portsmouth, and this segment is all about the Mount Hope Bridge.
Oh, beautiful, isn't it? The suspension span is over 6,000 feet long. Those towers are 285 feet high. And those piers you see actually go down 54 feet below the bottom of the bay. Go ahead, take a picture. I took many pictures almost every day when I was the resident engineer on the bridge construction. William Brennecke at your service. This is the narrowest gap between Portsmouth and Bristol, and it's the site of the historic Bristol Ferry. Of course, for many years, the only way across was by ferry. But in the 1920s, automobiles became more affordable, and the politicians down in Newport petitioned the state to build a bridge. The state rejected their proposal, but they did allow a private company to build a bridge and charge tolls. Enter the Mount Hope Bridge, and my boss, David Steinman. He designed the bridge. It cost over $4 million to build. It's the longest suspension bridge in New England. It was a prize winner, and it's painted green to blend in like it is now. We worked on it from 1927 to 1929. There were some problems. We were convinced to try a new heat-treated wire for the cables. That did not work out. The cables were condemned 4 months before the scheduled opening of the bridge. It actually took almost 8 months to dismantle the cables and rewire them. But finally, on opening day, Senator Vanderbilt presided over the festivities. There were 2 parades. One started in Bristol and had a citizen dressed as Roger Williams. The other started here in Portsmouth, and someone was dressed as John Clark. They met in the middle of the bridge, unfurled flags, and exchanged greetings. Why, there was also a ceremony in which Senator Vanderbilt and Governor Case were made members of the Algonquin Council. Well, you may remember 1929 for a different event, the stock market crash. In fact, that happened 5 days after the opening of the bridge, and many companies went bankrupt, including the Mount Hope Bridge Company, and they defaulted on their mortgage. But fortunately, another company was able to buy the bridge and run it. Well, I'm pretty sure that this bridge will stand for many decades, and it will stand as a monument to the skill, the hard work, and the success of American engineers.
I hope you enjoyed Portsmouth Community Theater's On the Road. Special thanks to Richard and Gloria Schmidt for coming up with this idea, and to the actors for all being so willing to participate. Hope you return to this site often to see what other goodies we have in mind.